Hi guys, welcome back. This is the second part of my two-part video Wednesday, and actually I've been thinking, sorry, and I think I will do this, but I'm gonna call this Write In Wednesday. I love my alliteration. If you don't know that from reading my books or my blog, but Write In Wednesday. So I have I don't know, Fiction Friday and Fun Fact Friday and Throwback Thursday and Teaser Tuesday. So today is Write In Wednesday. And you can write in your questions to me and I will answer them live on Wednesdays. It'll be like this segment thing. Because I know that sometimes questions just come up. I get asked the same questions a lot and I usually try to answer them. But I don't know, I thought it would be fun to do it live, and hopefully I can explain myself a little bit better or a little bit worse, maybe preferred in writing, but we'll see. So anyways, I had posted this last week on Facebook, and I got a bunch of amazing questions, and I'm going to try to answer concisely, although we know I have a problem with rambling. And I have my notes, so I'm going to be looking down when I read them. If you're wondering why my friend Lindsay's like, you never look at the camera. You need to look at the camera. And so I am trying. I'm really trying. But that is a skill that I will give newscasters, anyone who has to talk directly into the screen. It is hard because there's nobody looking at me. So my eyes go everywhere. There's a lot of distractions in this room, or in any room, apparently. So anyways, yeah, so I got a lot of great questions. My favorite question was, why are you so awesome? Thank you, Kaylee. My answer is, I'm not. I am the weirdest person you'll ever meet. Like, Utopia was the first time I had ever met people that were really excited to meet me because of my books. Like, usually people meet me and then find out I'm a writer, and then they're like, you write what? You do what? Why are you so weird? And people were like nervous to meet me, and you should never be nervous to meet me because I am the most normal person you'll ever meet. I just wanted to be like, let's just sit down, have a cup of coffee, we'll be best friends by the end of it. Like, don't be nervous ever. So anyways, I'm not awesome. I'm completely normal. I'm also super weird, but who isn't? That's what I tell myself. Anyways, who is not weird? The more you get to know people, the weirder they are. Then the more you love them. Well, that's my philosophy anyways. Okay, next question was, tell us about your family. I can't remember who it was, but you wanted to know how many kids I have and what their ages are. So, I have 4 kids, and they are all between the ages of 6, and the baby will be 1 in August. So, and I cannot wait till he's 1. First of all, I can never remember his age. People are like, well, how old is he? How old is he? And I'm like, he's a baby. That's how old he is. He's the baby. I can never remember months. I'm always looking around like, who can help me? Who remembers how old my baby is? But he will be 1 on August. I remember the date. I'm just pausing for dramatic effect. August 12th. And I can't wait till I can tell everyone he's 1. He's 1 years old. It will be a fantastic day. And then I have a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old. The baby's name is Solo, after Star Wars, as in Han. Don't judge us. Told you I was weird. And then we have a 2-year-old named Striker. And he is a handful. He's amazing. But we love him and his craziness. And then I have a 4-year-old named Scarlett, and then I have a 6-year-old named Stella. So I have a stutter, thanks to all the S's. And I'm more surprised when I get a name right than I am when I call everyone the wrong name a million times. But in fact, the whole house if I get a name right, the whole house kind of stops. I'm like, what? Mom just said the right name? And then we move on. But we do pause and take it in. My husband's name is Zach, and we got married super young. We got married at 21, but we had already been dating for 4 years. We're high school sweethearts. We actually met in 2nd grade, which it was just love at first sight. We just knew. We were 8 years old, looked across the room. No, I'm just kidding. That's creepy. We did not start dating until we were 17 and juniors in high school, so we were friends for a long, long time. I actually set him up with 2 of his girlfriends in high school, and he kind of tried to help me with a couple boys, but it didn't work out for me. So anyways, we started dating, and then we both stayed in Omaha to go to school together. And then right before my senior year of college, we got married. And as soon as I graduated college, like literally the week later, we found out we were pregnant. So we've had kind of this whirlwind of life happening for the last, we'll be married 8 years in August. So 8 years, it's a long time. That's, but it's been great. He's a wonderful person. He's really great. So we kind of tackle this whole chaos of kids and life together, and it's wonderful. So that's my family. And then the next question are all about books. So anyway, just be prepared to change topics. It was, how did I come up with the Star-Crossed series? So I had been reading a lot of young adult, like Harry Potter, and then I read Twilight series, and then my sister-in-laws, when Zach and I got married, were in high school, and so the reading was like this way for us to connect through, because I was like married with kids, and they were in high school, and they're amazing girls. So we started reading together, and we read The Blue Bloods by Melissa De La Cruz, and several by Libba Bray. The list goes on and on. We just had a great time, and we'd have this like little pie night where we would go to Village Inn on Wednesday nights when it's free pie night. You just have to buy something. So we'd like get a soda, and we'd buy pie, like 6 different kinds of pie, and I'll try them. And then we talk about books, and so it was kind of like this unofficial book club that we tore them to pieces, to be honest, and then we built them back up. We'd hate them, and then we'd keep eating pie, and then we'd build them back up and fall in love with them again. And so it got to be the point where I'm like, I could do this. I could write a book. It was after a particularly bad book, and I won't tell you the name of it, but I read it, and I'm like, I can do this. I can write a good heroine. Like, I want a strong female character. I want someone who's going to kick ass and take names, and, that's not obsessed with love, that love doesn't have to be the end all, that it can be part of your life, but not all your life. Okay, that was my thought. If you've read my books, it doesn't stay that way, but in the beginning, that was it. So I actually wrote a contemporary fiction young adult book that will never, ever, ever see the light of day. Well, okay, so that might not be true. I might one day go back, and it's just terrible. It's just like, it's like an 8-year-old wrote it, really. It's really bad. And, but I had finished it, and at the time I thought it was amazing. My sister-in-laws read it, and they like it, and they're very supportive about it still. But, I thought it was great. Of course I did. Everyone thinks that about their first book. I mean, I finished a book. Like, that in itself was this huge deal for me. So I started submitting to publishing houses, because that was what you did at the time. There was not this option to self-pub. That was in, like, 2009, I think. No, it was in 2007. 2007. So I wrote this book, and then I actually got quite a few responses for it, but then when I started turning in pages, it just wasn't strong enough. And now I can see, okay, good job for not publishing that piece of work, because it's a piece of work. Like, it's bad. So, so that didn't get any attention, but at the time, like, Twilight was huge, vampires were huge, like, True Blood was just on TV, vampires were everywhere. And so I thought to myself, well, if I can write a vampire book, because I was doing a lot of research, and there were times when I would come across something like, this publishing house is taking everything vampire. Like, they are accepting every manuscript vampire. Not that they were publishing it, but they were reading it. And that was my biggest thing. Like, if I could get someone to read the entire manuscript, they would believe in me. That was my goal. So I sat down and I started writing the StarCrossed series. I started writing Reckless Magic, and I thought it would be a vampire book. Eden was never, ever going to be a vampire. Do not worry. But I did think that vampires would be part of the story, and like, I think instead of, can't remember now if it was either the Titans that were vampires or the Psychics. Can't remember, but it was one of those two that was going to be a vampire. And then as I continued to write, it never fit with the story. I was like, well, vampires drink blood. Like, how can I work that into this particular story? And I couldn't. It just didn't fit. And that was when I pulled the vampires out. Like, I hadn't even written anything about them, but I just knew, like, pulled them out of my notes or my brain and said, no vampires. This is not a vampire story. This is an Eden story. And so I just kept writing, and the story just kind of happened. Like, I'm a pantser is what it's called. I'm as surprised as you. When Sebastian came into the scene in book 2, I didn't know that was going to happen. He just showed up at school, and I was like, who are you? What are you doing here? What's happening? And so that's very much how I write. Like, I knew where the story was going, how I wanted it to go, but anyways, the story kind of happened to me. But so I hope so. Where did the story come from? It was just my plea to get published, and I submitted, like, I didn't save my rejections because they hurt my feelings, but a lot of people do. I didn't. I think I saved one, and it was amazing, like, reply, and she just really helped me see some things that I was doing wrong. So it was more of like an editorial response than a form rejection, which I will always be thankful for. But nobody even asked for pages for that. So then 2011, my husband had been, you should self-publish, you should self-publish, and I thought I was giving up. I thought it was failure. Because that's what you read online, or what you used to read online, was that if you self-publish, you're paying for it, you're footing the bill, you're not going to make your money back. It's a wasted investment, and no publishing house will pick you up after that because you failed at publishing. Like, why would they pick you up when they know your books aren't going to sell? So I was terrified of it, and then I got my first Kindle for my birthday in February, and or no, it must have been for Christmas. I got it for Christmas, and then I read and became obsessed with self-publishing, and I was like, okay, Zach, you know what you're talking about, let's do it. And I published in March of 2011, so, and then I went from there. The next question is kind of in the same line. It's, if Eden chose Jericho, how would that have changed the story? Because I've said before, it was very up in the air for me. Like, I didn't know who she was going to choose. When I started writing, I set out to write something completely different, like completely independent woman kind of story. So maybe she doesn't choose the hero. Maybe he's a true villain. Maybe she takes the Jacob instead of the Edward, because I was always team Jacob. When I read the book, as a parent, as a woman, like a strong female woman, I just always felt like, well, because there's that line that Bella says, Jacob, you're like my son, and Edward's like my drug, or something along those lines. And to me, I'm looking at this teenage girl going, that is unhealthy. Like, you need the sun. Like, we need light and fresh air, and you do not need to be obsessed with a drug. Like, bad news. So I was kind of like, well, what if, not that I was writing about Twilight, but that's not the only book out there like that. And so I was now thinking, what if she chose B? What if she chose answer B instead of answer A? Even though while I was writing, it was very clear that would never happen, that Eden and Kiran were star-crossed, that was fated, that there was no other choice for her. But but originally the plan had been not just to write a strong female, but to make it a tragedy. There aren't very many tragedies you read about, and it was this whole idea of Romeo and Juliet. So in the beginning, probably before I got halfway through Fearless, so not that far, not like that far in the beginning, I guess it traveled for a while, but I had always kind of planned to kill Kiran, that he would be completely unredeemable after his betrayal to Eden, and that the only way that he could redeem himself was to sacrifice his life to save her. Eventually I fell in love with Kiran, and there was no way I could have ever killed him off. I think I would have like broke my own heart, but that was my idea, that he would die to save her. So the story was going to go either of two ways, and I can't say how it would have gone because I didn't write it, and I would have figured out as I wrote it, and I couldn't have told you a minute beforehand. But she was either going to learn to live, learn to be happy with Jericho, knowing that she would always love Kiran after he was gone, or she was going to choose to dream walk with Kiran forever, that he wouldn't have been truly gone, that she could have just fallen asleep and turned the kingdom over to Avalon and lived with Kiran that way. So a little bit more fantastical and depressing, right? That would have been really depressing. And I got into, I mean, there was no way the story would have really gone that way, but those were like my original plans, my original way of thinking. So, but what, I mean, the story really told itself to me, and I didn't have ultimate control. The story did, which is kind of like how I run my house. The kids have control, not me. But anyways, so that's that. And then the next question is, what is my writing style like, or how do I write? So I need quiet. I used to be able to write with music. I used to be able to write with the TV on. I used to be able to write around my children, but mostly I just need quiet and peace. And I think it's probably indicative of how my life is, just crazy chaos with all 4 kids. So I prefer quiet, and I prefer just focus. I can't always write. It's not always there in my head. Sometimes it's just me shopping on Zulily or looking on Pinterest when I'm supposed to be writing. But sometimes I can do music. Sometimes. But most of the time it is quiet that I need. And then, what was the other part of that? Oh, what is my writing style like? I touched on that before. It's just, I let the story happen. I don't always know what's going to happen. I don't always know where the story is going to go. I have an idea of where I want it to go, but I'm very laid back with that concept. Just, if something comes up, I want to follow it. I want to see where it's going. I'm a pantser. That's what they say. Although I do try to do this 8-point story arc. I guess it makes it good. I just heard the name of it, but then I went back. Don't worry, I went back through all my stories. I'm like, okay, does it have 8 points? Are we getting where we need to go? So that's like, it's just how to tell a good story. It should have all these things, like the climax and the finale, whatever. Although my endings, I know, are really short. I always get ragged on that, like how quickly my books end. That's just personal taste of how I like to read. I do not like a long ending. I never read epilogues. If you looked at my Kindle, it's shameful how many books are left unfinished at like the 86% mark. Like as soon as the climax is over and we're back to some semi-normal way of life, I'm like, that's all I needed to read. It's really bad. So I guess I write to my style more than anything. Sorry. But, yeah. So I probably shouldn't have admitted that, huh? And then the last question is, where do I get my ideas from? Like, where do I get my book ideas from? Well, I went over Reckless and how that came apart. Like, Starbright was an idea I had before I ever wrote Reckless, and I tried to write it, and it wasn't in me back then. So Starbright came after our first child was born, Stella, which means star. And I was writing that first contemporary book that I won't publish, and it came out of that, like, while I was thinking about that book, I just started thinking about Stella and her name and like the star. And what if there was a star? What if the stars were real? What if the stars were people that protected us, kind of thing? And then The Reluctant Warrior was just from like a kind of an outcry of more star-crossed that came. And I didn't know, even when I started that book, I knew who Avalon was going to be. I've said this before. I knew Avalon and Amelia were going to be together, like when there wasn't even a story about them. I just knew that. And Turletov, I just was thinking of the star-crossed, and I was like, that was kind of a rabbit hole I never went down. Let's go down it now. Let's see where it goes. The Rush. I love Greek mythology. I love reading books about Greek mythology, and I don't read a lot of paranormal because I write paranormal, and I don't want any of my ideas to get mixed up with other people's, or there to be like plagiarism accusations ever. So I never read young adult paranormal. I hardly ever read adult paranormal. I just don't want, the ideas to crisscross. So, I love Greek mythology, but I don't get to read it. And so I was like, well, fine, I'll write it. And I love the idea of sirens. And I had seen this gorgeous picture online of a siren. I can't remember the artist. It's like old school, Renaissance, like old school. And she had her arms wrapped around a sailor. I actually talked about it in The Rush. I think I say his name there. But wrapped around the sailor, and there's like waves crashing up behind her, and she's like taking him down to the deep. And that portrait was just super inspiring. And I'm like, I'm really into. I started as an intercultural studies. That's what I majored in. And my idea, before I was a writer, I always wanted to do relief work around the world, be very involved with issues that face us today, like world hunger, poverty, and the sex trade. And I have a lot of friends that are working around the world just because I traveled and make friends, whatever. And all my friends from college that were in my major are now doing things like that. So I hear about the sex slave industry a lot, and it's tragedy, and it happens everywhere. Like nowhere is protected. It's big in Ohio. It's big in Nashville. We were just down there. It's like one of the biggest cities, or Tennessee is one of the biggest states for people who are taken in the sex slave industry. So it's everywhere, and it's not talked about a lot. And that's where I got the idea for The Rush. It was just something I would like to spotlight, that it is happening, that slavery is bigger than it has ever been in the entire history of our world. It is everywhere, and people just don't. I don't think there's enough attention on it. So there's that. That in the Dark was, I wanted to write a contemporary. I knew I needed to, and I have a different contemporary that I would like to write. But then when I sat down, Kelly Clarkson, I've talked about this before, I was so inspired by that song by Kelly Clarkson, Stronger. And I was listening to it in the car, and it was like this mental image of like a girl waking up to that song, and she had just been through abuse and a terrible relationship, and what it would be like for her to come out on the other side of that and heal and find love. So That in the Dark is not as deep as that. I'll probably write a story similar to that someday, but That in the Dark just happened to be really fun, and I fell in love with Finn, and he kind of drove the story there. And that's how, it's just like everything inspires me. Nature, songs, TV shows, conversations. Like a name can inspire me. If I hear a name I like, suddenly I'm like, okay, I want to write a story, and I want her to be the main character, and let's develop a world. So, I don't know. I have like probably 15 other book ideas in my head right now that I just want time to write, and I need to focus on what I'm doing now. But they're always up there kind of marinating, and I live in an alternate reality. Like, I get to write down my daydreams, and to me that's the ultimate, that's the greatest thing. So where do book ideas come from? Like the craziness that is my head. But Anyways, I do get ideas from like random people. I have friends begging me to write a sexy book, and it's probably not in me, but they give me lots of ideas too. So if I ever take one, they'll get the credit. I'll name who's given me the ideas. So, anyways, this is a really long video, but I hope it answers your questions. And next time, I promise to be more concise. So, hope you guys have a great Wednesday. Bye.